Hi everyone, before we jump into our usual football pub chat nonsense, we've got some exciting news for you. We've teamed up with Northern Whisper Brewery as we want to give back to our listeners. As a Playing Out from the Bar listener, you can get 10% off on their website. Just search Northern Whisper, select the option to order online and enter code Playing Out from the Bar 10 to get your 10% off. Easy as that. What do you reckon, boys?
Superb, Trice. I mean, as we've talked about on this podcast before, many a time, you both know that I have quite a narrow taste in beer. I'm normally just flicking back between premium lagers, so I'm looking forward to giving this a go, and I hope the listeners take advantage and do the same.
Yeah, definitely the same for me as well. Feel like I've used this lockdown as an opportunity to broaden my horizons away from the Carlin and Fosters of the world and started to take on some more independence, and I know this is highly regarded from your neck of the woods, so I'll be sure to jump on it and continue ordering some beers in at home as the world returns to normal.
If you recommend it, Trice, then I'm confident you've got.
Goes without saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, before we head on, remember, please drink responsibly.
Hi, you're listening to Playing Out from the Bar. Please be aware this podcast contains strong language.
Right, welcome back everyone to the virtual bar. You are listening to Playing Out from the Bar, the only bar this week that doesn't require you to sit outside and where the rule of 6 doesn't apply. I'm Jack Lacey. I'm joined once again by the two Lewises, Dobby and Trice. Evening, gents. Trice, I'll come to you first. No corridor of uncertainty this week.
It's tense. It's always a tense moment. Hi Jack. Hi Dobby.
Hey mate.
Even more tense. What are you drinking? Have you got anything from the bar tonight?
Yeah, same again. I'm still on the chinwag, getting through a big crate of Northern Whisper. So, yep, still on the chinwag for me.
Nice. I'm still on the Brewdog Lost Lager. Perhaps we're all just stuck in our ruts at the moment, and I kind of introduced this. Well, we introduced this format to show like that we'd be drinking something different every week. That's how I imagined it, and we're all just now stuck to our regulars. But I suppose that's all part of going to your local pub.
You're still on your original 4 cans of beer.
Yeah. I'm making them stretch these 4 free cans that they sent through in January. They're really doing me well through this lockdown. Dobby, welcome to the bar. You've joined us at the table as well.
Good evening.
How are you doing tonight?
Yeah, not bad, thank you, mate. I'm doing pretty well. I'm currently sat with a New Zealand IPA called Somehow Lose Glass from North Brewing Company down the road from me, and which is I usually have. Well, you've probably heard that I've had a few of these over the last year, and this one's probably been my favourite out from what I've had from them. 7% is quite nice. So a couple of these, and you know about it. I'm pretty sure I had one of these on an earlier recording, and I was singing its praises then. But yeah, this is the first one I've had for a while actually, and it's pretty good.
Can we remember that was that previous recording a particularly strong episode?
I can't remember, to be honest.
If it is, listen out for that. This is going to be a blinder, everyone.
Yeah, I can't remember which episode it was, but yeah, would recommend. Good solid alcohol.
Yeah, good stuff. Good solid alcohol.
It would be my quote to a newspaper wanting reviews.
I felt like at the start when I was saying you know, the rule of 6 doesn't apply. Partridge at this point would say, but in all seriousness, stick to the guidelines. Stick to the government guidance. Yeah, good stuff, boys. Well, good to see you again. I've only got sort of a whistle stop tour of the social corner tonight, but it was something that I had to bring up. Although Dobby, actually, I think did you bring it to our attention in the group earlier? It's a further development on Gonzaga, basically, or are they Gonzaga? Is what we're about to learn. Because
right, I think Trice brought this one.
Oh, did you bring this forward, Trice?
I've seen that, yeah.
I mean, do you want to explain what the what the clip is?
Well, I don't do it justice because I'm northern as anything, so I don't really. And you have to pronounce it in an American accent to get it right, which I'm not sure I'm willing to do. But
Right, I'll tell you what. I'll play the clip at this point, and we can let the listeners decide whether we've been pronouncing our university team right all this time, or whether we've been wrong all this time.
Well, it's evidently wrong, isn't it?
I didn't feel like I
Hold
couldn't
on.
tell too much difference in what he was saying, so I feel a bit
It's
like
Gonzaga. He's basically saying.
Gonzaga. I thought you were saying it's Gonzaga, not Gonzaga. Not Gonzaga. I don't know. But to me, it just felt really petty. Like, do you want fans or not? Because
Do you think this tweet was aimed at us, by the way? Like, that's what I'm starting to worry. Have they cottoned on to our social media campaign, and they're just like, these fucking English guys can't even pronounce the team name right?
Possibly. I think that tweet aired after an episode where Dobby called for the manager's head, so...
Anyway,
I'm falling out of love with this team.
Let's stick by him.
Jay Billas calling people out for poor pronunciation.
I'll play the clip now. Let's have a listen.
Before we go into the championship game tonight, one important reminder. It's Gonzaga, not Gonzaga. They're called the Zags. If it were Gonzaga, they'd be called the Zogs. Important tip before game time. They've been kicking everybody's ass for 20 years. We can get it right.
Oh, prick.
I feel that it's so unnecessarily aggressive at the end as well. Like, they've been kicking ass for 20 years, as if that makes a difference, as if we should be intimidated by them because of that.
I feel like we should respond and say you've got bigger on-field problems in your soccer team at the moment, so maybe you should be focusing your attention on their performance.
Yeah, instead of turning the knife on your, loyal English fans who've just got stuck with you, really. Yeah. How about looking at your team's performance on the pitch? It's not been good enough.
I feel like this is like Arsenal fan TV. You two are whinging for the clicks and the YouTube views, but I'm going to come on and be positive and say let's stick by in Gonzaga we trust. And what's the one called with headphones on Arsenal TV? That'd be me.
Is it DT? Is that
possibly?
DT? I've not watched it for
possibly,
a long time. I'm never an avid watcher, but I think DT was like the sort of just stuck by Wenger for all the shit, which I liked about him. None of the others did. So Trice, you're the DT equivalent. I'm more. I mean, me and Dobby are just fucking. We're already starting our own YouTube careers at this point, wanting to branch out.
I've got a lot to say about Gonzaga at the minute, but they're obviously quite successful in other sports, but like the football side of things isn't going well. You can't just disguise that by trying to paint a good picture and make out that the institution's perfectly fine when it's not. Your soccer team's performing very badly.
But I think there goes any kind of relationship that we were trying to build. But
there goes any chance of us getting flown out to a game before the end of the year.
Well, if they cared, then they would, because they should be looking to build relationships. And
I'm still going to keep calling them Gonzaga. I don't care what Jay Billis says. I don't even think he's associated with the club.
I'm kind of like at that point now where I feel like whilst he's at the club, they won't be getting my money. But until he goes, when he goes, then I'll be willing to start putting my money back into the club. But I just don't agree with him and what he's doing at the club.
I'm leaning towards you as well, Dobby. I think that's the right call, actually. We'll come back to him. We'll see what their communication is over the next week or so before our next episode, and then we'll make a decision, I think. But yeah, we'll move on to our main topic tonight in the bar, which we're basically going to be doing as we did with the Brits Abroad five-a-side team, which I think was a long time ago now. I think that was back in the days when Dobby, you were calling in from your car and on dial-up.
Bluetooth answer.
It was that early on in the series, but we're basically going to do a recreation of that and build a five-a-side team, this time of Mavericks. So I suppose, Trice, I'll come to you first. What just before we dive into picking this team, who are we looking for? I suppose how would you define a Maverick player that could get into this team?
That's a good question. I think a Maverick player so they've got to be playing in the Premier. They've got to have played in the Premier League for one, because we did have a few suggestions on Twitter that Rene Higuita is it that the keeper with the scorpion kick?
He's I suppose he's your default choice almost as a Maverick, isn't he? He's like the first person you think of.
And I mean, it'd be straight in if they'd had a spell at West Brom or something like that in the mid-2000s. But unfortunately, this is just Premier League Maverick. So for me, it's the players who have got moments of brilliance, but are dodgy as anything and have been proven difficult to manage over their career as well. So the players who you want a bit more from, they'd be unbelievable if they had James Milner's attitude, but part of their genius is why we love them, I guess.
Yeah. Do you know, for some reason, when we've just been talking about that and the keeper, all I can think about is, the monk from Mean Machine, the keeper.
the psycho. Yeah.
That is, what a guy.
Yeah, he'd be a bit Maverick, definitely.
The other one I was going to say, similar to Higuita, was Jose Luis Chilavert, the Paraguayan goalkeeper who used to take free kicks. I think any sort of goalkeeper who's like...
He wore number 9, didn't he? That was a reference to last week as well, or the other week.
Yeah, I think he'd have to be up for consideration for me.
When we say on free kicks, we're talking like in and around the area or just anywhere?
Yeah. No, we're talking like he was on set pieces. It was firmly his choice whether he wanted to have, if he got the ball, everyone else was backing away. I think, it's a World Cup qualifier.
Why? That's just...
And I think as well, he had the power at his club side to sort of... he was captain, so I think he used to go for the Stuart Pearce, David James model and just put himself up front a little bit, I think, as well. Hence the number 9 worked for a striker's number.
I mean, it's kind of a beautiful segue there, Trice, but you've kind of already clattered into one of my suggestions for the team, because I know perhaps over the course of his career you wouldn't associate him with always been a Maverick, and perhaps he doesn't have the attitude side that some of the other players will have that we're going to talk about. But I just remember David James getting that game up front, getting brought off the bench up front for Stuart Pearce's Man City, and I just think I've never seen a crazier move in the Premier League. I don't think I've ever seen something that just sums up just why just pointless behaviour, other than for the joke, for the laugh of it, for banter, as people would say these days. Other than that, what was the benefit to putting David James up front?
Do you know what I like about that though, Jack? If that had been a dead ringer where it was 13th playing 14th, it wouldn't be as much of an issue. But Man City, I think they're playing Middlesbrough, are they? And basically the winner goes into the Europa League.
No.
Yeah.
European football on the line, and the reserve keeper gets brought.
But what's obvious is that it was premeditated, because they had an outfield shirt with James 1 printed on, and
did they really? I can't remember.
I'm pretty certain. I think he
worse,
runs over. Nicky Weaver comes on, and David James keeps his keeper shorts and socks on, and puts James number 1 on. But I think we've mentioned this already on this podcast, where if you're sat on the bench as a striker, that is a dark day in anyone's career, when the manager, an England legend, is turning to the 6'5" keeper to get you into the Europa League ahead of you on 50 grand a week as a striker. You may as well just
Yeah.
I'm just looking at here.
John Macken was that man, and I don't think he was best pleased, was he?
Yeah, I'm just looking at it here, and you're right. There was a number 1 shirt readily printed. And
that's
the funny
insane.
thing is, it says they basically put him on up front to unsettle Middlesbrough's backline.
That's got to be that's a football sentence written on Wikipedia if ever I've heard one. No concept, no sort of detail in the game. He was just going to unsettle them. I
mean, he is a good shout for a Maverick, David James, because in that clip it actually does sum up what he was like as a keeper as well. Like you can tell like he was a presence, but he had like a calamity. Like his first touch was like just ricocheting all over.
So, just a development on this, David James is claiming to not knowing anything about it until half time.
No way.
He's saying that at half time the kit man mentioned to him that he'd had a shirt printed for him, and David James was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And then the kit man hinted there was a chance that he'd go on up front, so the kit man's hinting it. So David James says, so the first I knew about it was at half time, and that was from the kit man. So when the board went up, I think it was 15 minutes to go, I saw Nicky Weaver coming on, and I wasn't sure if it was me coming up. I didn't know anything about it. I've spoken to Piercy a few times since, and he's said that he anticipated that I'd play as a target man, so he could put me in the mixer. Like, what a... But I think I played more as a number 10. I don't know where I was supposed to be.
I just love this idea of, what was the phrase you used to make? The kit man hinted, like as if the kit man was like raising his eyebrow.
Giving him a wink. Like,
Do you know what I reckon's happened there? I reckon, like, as they're getting desperate, the kit man's just on the bench going, "Hey, I reckon we need a target man on." Like, who have we got? And then someone just goes, "Oh, David James is 6'5", and Stuart Pearce's instant reaction is, "Right, get a shirt printed, get him on."
Man City are like struggling, and after one long ball over the top just goes out of play, he turns to the kit man and like, "Right, print it up, get those numbers on now." He's like, kit man frantically rushing into the bag. There's no way that can't have been pre-planned. If David James is denying that, I think that's like Pele levels of bullshit.
Yeah,
it's not on.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's got to have some kind of insight, hasn't he? It's not just that's not just going to get dropped on him to go and just stand up front. Was it like 15 minutes to go as well?
I think at least. I don't think John Macken played for Man City again. I think he just left straight away after the game. Was just absolutely fuming because it's such a. I mean, yeah. Imagine being that. I'd be pissed off if I was a striker in amateur football on Sunday League, and I was on the bench, and the keeper came on outfield ahead and went up front. I'd be fuming. But
that's nuts. I think
so
yeah.
Is he your pick then, Jack, for a keeper for a Maverick 11? Or
I mean, he was the name I'd written down. Obviously that incident sticks in my mind, but I also just remember him being into like art, being into modelling, just being into like random, just like he just one of these men. I think that just he had to have an interest in everything. Like he had to know a little bit about every subject without being an expert on any. So
he was the influence to get the white suits, wasn't he, for the Spice Boys in that cup?
Was he really?
It was an Armani deal on it, yeah. So he was my selection anyway, but I'm happy to listen out if either of you two have got any other suggestions.
I've got two other keepers noted down. The first one I'd probably say is the first keeper I remember watching who thought he was a striker. I know David James played up front, but this keeper...
This guy thought he was a striker.
Yeah, he was just one that stood out to me when I was looking at this, and that's Fabian Barthez, on the basis that he generally did think he was a striker, and he just used to... He had a calamity in him, didn't he? He was unbelievable. Yeah. He was a World Cup winner, a Premier League winner, I believe, and potentially an ace keeper, but he just did stupid things like came out for crosses and didn't catch it. Or I remember him stood there with Di Canio, got played through, and Fabian Barthez was just stood there waiting for the offside trap with his hand up, and Di Canio just like slots it past him. It's like, what are you doing? Just save it.
He's a great shout. Barthez.
I did think Barthez as well, and I just remember as a child, like he did just seem to just kind of spend more time stood like near the halfway line than in his own area. You talk about like sweeper keepers nowadays being a tactical move. It did just seem back then it was more of his own desire to just be as far up the pitch as possible. I want to be involved. Yeah, any given opportunity. I don't think anyone was telling him to. And I remember just as a kid thinking like, God, he's just so high up.
I remember in one of his first games for us, Laurent Robert scored a free kick for us against Manchester United, beating Barthez. And what was odd about it was at first you thought, oh, it's a great free kick, nice one. But on you look at the replays, and I'd advise anyone to watch this on YouTube. Barthez actually goes to, it's like a free kick to Barthez's left, so top left-hand corner, and he dives at it with his right hand. So instead of like going out towards with your left hand, which would have been the natural thing to do, he kind of puts his left arm behind his back and dives at it with his wrong hand and just completely misses the ball. And perhaps he was just like, he thought he was so good, he thought he could save shots, like make a camera save, make it even harder for himself. And he used to smoke, I think, as well, which fair play, any Premier League players that smoke, they deserve some respect. So
He actually got an opportunity to play outfield in a pre-season tour and come on the left wing. On number 14 for Man United. Apparently he brought a ball down on his chest and nutmegged someone. So.
Oh God!
I don't know if there's any footage of that anywhere, but like, why are all these managers giving keepers a run out? It's like, at the kids' football when the goalkeeper just wants an opportunity to play outfield. And the manager just gives in every now and then, in like a tournament or something, or in like training. Like, why is that all of a sudden carrying over into like the highest division in the world, that in England?
I can't imagine Ferguson, even in a pre-season friendly, being prepared for that sort of nonsense, like accepting that nonsense. Like, he must have not been there. It must have been.
It's either that or it's just a rumour that's just made it onto the internet.
It sounds like something Steve
So I didn't
McLaren
personally
would have
witness
done
it.
while Ferguson wasn't there, like as a treat. He'd be like, "Oh, go on then, Fabian. Go on the left wing. Don't tell Sir Alex."
I've actually got a video of it here, to be fair. So we'll have to share it. We've got oh god, here he is. Got him calling for the ball down the left wing. Yeah, we'll definitely share that one so everyone can see Fabian Barthez having a run out on left wing.
Oh, that's a great shout. I mean, I'm kind of I'm thinking he might be our pick. Did you have anyone else you wanted to throw into the mix, boys, before we decide on the keeper? Or should we?
Yeah, I've got one more, and he's probably my preferred choice. I would say, and that's Mr. Tracky Bottoms himself, Gabor Karayi. And the reason he's in is because of the Tracky Bottoms, really. Like the only keeper I can remember who consistently wore grey Tracky Bottoms and looked like he was dressed for sleeping, but actually was playing Premier League football. But he had more to him than just the Tracky Bottoms, though. Like, don't let that deceive you. Like, I don't know if you remember the Euros 2016 when he was in net for Hungary. There was a compilation of him like doing flare throws out, like he was doing like no look throws out as a keeper and like rolling it through his legs and doing like NBA style sort of bounces and stuff, and just had a bit of character about him. And just the persistence to the Tracky Bottoms for me is maverick enough for him to be in this team here.
Yeah, I always the two that could definitely spring to my mind just as a child and just having that question mark about them is Barthez and Karayi. And I think the Tracky Bottoms in itself was just always just like just so random, really. It just adds that unpredictability to anybody, but he did seem to have the personality to suit it as well. Like, yeah. So I could definitely battle that one.
If he's not selling Tracky Bottoms in Hungary, there's no justice now.
It's just like someone's gone down the park in the grey Tracky Bottoms, just covered in like
just for kickabout,
just covered in like mud stains.
Yeah, what a legend! Proved that comfort is key, rather than shove your sports science, all your streamlined and skin tight stuff up your arse. It's comfort is key for Gabor. When
you would see him pull off a save there, you couldn't help but just picture like it was just someone playing like down the park or something, like with the mates. It's like someone who just loves going in net and taking it like and just being, because he was quite a dramatic keeper as well, wasn't it? Just someone who loves going down the park on a Sunday, like to play with his mates and just chucking himself about, just getting absolutely covered in shit. He just reminds you of one of them people.
Just the fact as well that he actually was even still playing at Euro 2016, because I swear most people thought he'd retired. And then it's like you just saw the tracksuit bottoms and we're like, oh no, he's still there, still loves chucking himself about.
Yeah.
So
just a bit off, like branching off of it, and you mentioned about the tournaments there. I was thinking the other day about how the international tournaments can always throw up like a bit of a rogue moment. And can you remember in like the last World Cup when in the last minute one of the players went to take a throw in and did the front flip?
For
It's
Iran,
like-
wasn't it? Was it Iran?
Yeah, it was
Morocco,
it was
Iran,
Iran,
yeah.
in like the 90th minute, and it's just at a
Amazing.
tournament like that. There's always a player who's got something up the sleeve to just do something absolutely stupid.
Didn't it get done for a foul throw? Or did it
Yeah.
go straight? Or something with it was completely shit. He didn't even make the box.
Yeah.
It either was a foul throw or went out straight out of play.
I remember being sat on the sofa watching it, just almost squealing, like, what's going on?
What's good?
Imagine like it's your team's last chance to attack to save a nation in a tournament. They had to score to stay in that tournament, and you think this is it. This is the perfect
This is
time
the
for me to
chance.
pull out a front flip, just to get that extra little bit of pace on the ball. Amazing. Yeah, right. So what are we saying, boys? Then is Gabor getting the nod for our goalkeeper slot?
I think as well, if it's a five-a-side thing, it's acceptable for his grey tracky bottoms to like.
Yeah.
To be fair,
can imagine, like,
he's the
Manchester,
He's the most
you know.
like power league.
Yeah.
out of the
Yeah.
three. Like,
Yeah.
I can't see the others. I mean, Fabian Barthez is not going in a power league bar for a post-game pint. He just would. He just look down on it. So for that reason, I think Gabor's got to be in. Let's move on to outfield. So, I mean, which one of you wants to kick off? Have you got any like a sort of must-pick selection that we can't turn down?
Similar
Go on,
to like
Dobby.
what Trice said there at the beginning, the ones that I've kind of picked out are all attack-minded players. I feel like I've just really either overlooked defensive-minded players, or there is just a correlation between the dodgier the player, the more forward he plays.
Yeah.
So, I think when you look at the defenders, you're not talking like Mavericks out of the personality. It's just out of kind of controversial things they've been caught up in. Maybe that doesn't particularly say that they've got like not. I didn't think what we were looking to like pick into this. So a lot of mine have been forward related. So this could have to just be one of them power league teams that's just full of really skillful players who like to go forward.
Well,
and
Gabor's
there's
in
just
goal, Dob, so we're covered at the back. Like
Yeah.
he's going to be diving about.
So I'll throw in probably what I consider the most defensive out of my list here, and that would it's a bit of a one to be expected really, and I think he's made a few of our lists. I think he might have made the Brits Abroad one as well, Joey Barton, just because I mean I think for 15 years now it seems that every year a new story just seems to spring up of Joey Barton just getting himself into some kind of controversy, being in some kind of trouble, just saying things that he maybe just shouldn't be saying, and it feels like it's just gonna, even from like playing career into management career and economics career, whatever he's doing as a degree, like alongside his footballing, it's just you're just guaranteed something controversial with him, and I've obviously written down a list. There was too many assaults to even like specify each one on the pitch, off the pitch, training grounds. Like we've all seen the Twitter call outs to ex-players and fans. It also seems to have an obsession with like comparing things to like George Orwell and Big Brother, which I can appreciate because it's a great book, 1984. But there was a few quotes when I was looking online where he just seems to always take to Twitter to like compare someone or something to like to that book, and one of them was like comparing the FA to Big Brother, calling them an Orwellian organisation. Apparently as well he broke a pedestrian's leg while driving through Manchester at 2 a.m, but this is rumoured and it's not like been confirmed, but you can really, if you spend enough time on the internet, you can find out a lot of strange things about Joey Barton, a lot of like rumours as well, and you're just reminded of some of them as well, getting sent home from a pre-season tour for apparently assaulting a 15-year-old Everton fan.
I remember that. Yeah.
And then in the midst of that as well, biting Richard Dunn's finger. And then obviously exposing his backside to Everton fans at a game. So I think you can cover everything there. Just very outspoken, very controversial, and I think like obviously you can't doubt he's a player who's shown ability at various points of his career. And I think if he maybe had like a wiser head on his shoulders, he might have actually have been a much better player as well. So I thought he was always going to be worth a shout in Maverick footballers. I think he fits the bill.
Yeah, that's a good shout, that Dobby. I've actually got a teammate of his, is probably my most offensive player. Because, like, similar to what you said, really, I've heavily weighted for attackers here, really. And this was actually tweeted to us as well as a suggestion, and that's Adel Tarapt, his former QPR teammate.
Brilliant.
Now, I've seen him live a few times, Tarapt, when he played for QPR, in a championship this was, but generally one of the best players I've seen live. Like, he was just unreal.
Yeah.
But also, like, there was that QPR team when they were in and out of the Premier League. He was top draw, but also like an absolute maverick and an idiot close to, really. Like, the interview where Harry Redknapp's like, I want to pick players that want to run for QPR and want to train. Like, he don't want to train. I can't pick him. Just, I don't fancy it today, Harry. Yeah, just,
like a dog that don't want to go for a walk.
I mean, he must have been so frustrating to manage, but his ability, like, he was literally so good in his feet and playing like in that number 10. Just, if you had someone like Joey Barton behind him and workhorses, like, just say, do what you want, Adele. I think he looked the real deal, but he obviously just, loved getting overweight, loved nights out and stuff, didn't he? And I think it's a shame that he was like that, because I think he generally could have been so good as like a foreign player playing in the Premier League.
I remember like that period with QPR, and I remember quite well. There was the season they went up and won the league, and when he was obviously in like good form and enjoying his football, and thinking like, this guy is unreal. And then nothing really seemed to, like, for the next couple of years he showed like potential in like bursts, but nothing really developed. And now I think because I was quite young at the time still, I couldn't quite understand why like he hadn't like had like a big move, why he wasn't like playing in like the Premier League like almost consistently. And then it was almost like a few years later when I heard more about his like personality and his attitude, then I was like realised, there's a reason why. Like, at the time when I saw him play in the Championship that year, I thought this guy could go up to the Premier League and have the pick of clubs, essentially, the way he's like played this season. Absolutely not carried him because we were a great team, but he was that good, like you say. I think his attitude really just has let him down. Or as you say, like, not really like let him, in a weird way. He's aware of his potential, but he's been happy just to settle for being like, for just probably not reaching his full potential, which is a shame. He could have gone a lot higher.
It's frustrating, isn't it?
He played under Warnock as well. Like, that's a marriage I can't imagine, really. Like,
but he actually got his best out of him though. When Warnock getting promotion and stuff like that in that first year in the Premier League, that was when Tarapt was at his best.
That's really hard for me to, knowing what I do about the two personalities, that's just so hard to compute. I'd love to have been in that dressing room to see how it worked. That's a great shout, I think. Trice.
I think at that point though, QPR were absolutely dick in the Championship.
Yeah.
He'd have had a lot of freedom and a lot of like enjoying his football. A lot of people around him doing a lot of the work that he didn't have to do, and he could get away with that. So I imagine it was just almost a free roll, like, go out there, do your thing, and get us some goals, get us some assists, kind of thing. And then when you get into the Premier League, the reality is a lot different, isn't it? You can't really have any passengers in the Premier League, like, defensively. So
particularly for QPR, it's hard. I'm not even sure he'd have been a luxury player for a lot of top halves.
Well, they were still relying on Clint Hill as left back for about. Every time they went up, it was like, Clint Hill's got out of just giving him a chance. It's like, you can't just keep giving Clint Hill a chance.
I think when they first came back up that time, Sean Derry became temporarily the dirtiest Premier League player I'd ever seen, and I realised I'm not sure he was actually a dirty player or if the Premier League was just far too fast for him, because he just used to kick the shit out of every midfielder. But I think it was just like he was so late because the pace of the game was just too quick for him. I think Adele is a superb shout for our five-a-side team. I mean, I'm tempted with Joey Barton as well, just because I think Joey Barton is the player on this team who's going to, like, if you know, like in five-a-side when you get stuck in the corner at those power league, if that happens with Joey Barton, he's just, you know, you want him on your team. You don't want to be against him going into that corner, like waiting for the challenge. But if we've got him on our side, I like it.
That was the one who stood out to me. Was just the most defensive-minded I could think as well. Someone who would be willing just to get stuck in at the back. So if we're doing it out of tactically as well, I think Barton's got to be considered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, why don't we put Joey in and then see what we've got going forward, and if there's a space for Adele, we can maybe slip him in.
Yeah, I like that, Trice. I like it. I mean, do either of you have any more you want to put forward first?
Not for any sort of. That's the most defensive I went to rap. So this is already
the only defender I wanted to mention, and to be fair, he's not really a maverick in the sense of his on pitch demeanour, but I wanted to mention Benoit Asuakoto for being a maverick in the sense of just not really liking football, bizarrely, and just saying that he only played the game as a job and that it wasn't his passion. And I find that attitude quite hard to deal with, but then I also kind of just think, fair play. He didn't get involved in like the sort of showbiz like lifestyle outside of the game. He just sort of, I think he drove like a Peugeot 206 or something real, like something very basic.
That's what all good left backs drive, isn't it, Dobby?
Yeah.
And
There were the days.
He didn't like go for the flash cars. He didn't go for the parties or getting his name in newspapers. He just like kept his head down and did football as a sort of 9-to-5 job. I'm not sure what he did at the training ground after training finished, but I just think for that alone, I just think he's maverick in the sense of his personality, not so much him on the pitch, because he was a solid left back on the pitch.
Yeah. I remember thinking at the time, like when hearing about that, for some reason I was like a bit irritated by it. I don't know if it was just one of them days. Almost like he doesn't enjoy it, he can't just appreciate it. But then at the same time, I'll sit and like sing like David Batty's praises, and he's commonly
he was
known
going to be
as
like that, wasn't he?
And even to today, obviously, is really well regarded with Leeds fans, and he's done very little like post-career kind of like media. Like discussions or interviews or anything. He very much does just want to remain out of the spotlight, and did just say, I enjoyed football because, I played football because I was good at it, and that was like almost all you would get out of him. But yeah, I'll sit. So I feel like I contradicted myself a bit with Asuakoto back then. So I think you're right. If you're good at something, like why not? Like if I was good at something, I'd do it as a career. If we didn't like it.
Weirdly as well, he says.
How is your new job going, Dobby?
Asuakoto said one of his only friends in football was Adele Taarabt. So it all fits quite neatly. He says, I've got no one in my phone from football, nobody at all, well, except Adele Taarabt, who is on loan at QPR. But I don't call footballers in my team. I don't believe in friendships in football. So I don't know. He might not be going to the pub with us after the game, but equally he might be able to keep Adele Taarabt on the straight and narrow if he makes it into the team. But yeah, who else are we looking at, boys? Who else is going to be able to get into this team?
So I've actually got a list of six maybe strikers, and I think a few are like actual Premier League. Well, one is an obvious. Two are legends actually, like Cantona and Letizia, for me, are too established at both of their clubs to be even considered for this team. They're not rogue enough. Like,
yeah.
Even though Cantona kicked a fan in the head,
Which is brilliant. Yeah.
What he did at Man United, how he took them to a new level. For me, he just can't be, like. Yes, he was a maverick, but he just can't go in any team that we pick. Really, same with Letizia.
We can't have anyone that would be in discussion for like an all-time Premier League 11, can we?
Yeah. So going away from Cantona and Letizia, obviously great players, but so Paolo Di Canio, I mentioned him earlier. He's one that I'd like to pitch it to you guys.
Again, Trice. He was the next name on my list as well. That's so weird. Go on.
Because he just was so entertaining. Like, you could watch him and look at him and go, this guy could just tip over the edge. Like, where the clips where he's pushed the referee over, is refusing to. He's sat down on the penalty spot because he hasn't got a penalty, and he's refusing to move. Harry Redknapp is literally on the sideline, flapping like a goose. He's that angry. Go on, Paolo, lad, get up. But then he just had sheer brilliance in him that not many other players in the Premier League in my lifetime have been able to match. Really, I remember him scoring that goal. That ridiculous volley, that's no one's ever come close to that. And then
sort of mid-air scissor kick, wasn't it?
Yeah, he scored a few I remember him scoring one from about 35 yards against Chelsea, where he did a few kick-ups and then just smashed it in. I just think the fact he played for West Ham and Charlton in the Premier League, when really he could have played for any of the big boys in that era. Really, I think, but he was just so mad.
Yeah.
Go on, Dobby, sorry.
No, I was going to say I had him down on my list, and even it's just as a character, and you go back on his timeline of, if you look at him, even back to his time at Lazio, he was part of the Lazio Ultras, wasn't he? Even when he was a youth player as well. So just as a personality, the man's just got unpredictability in him. So. I thought as well that when I was considering him, and I thought he was maybe going to mention him for the player manager one, because I think there's just as many ridiculous kind of situations with Di Canio as a manager and that Maverick personality that he could make that player coach role.
I'm happy for him to be player coach of this team, to be honest. If he can't get in as a striker, I'm happy for him to be player coach and get 5 minutes at the end of the game.
If he's coaching this team, then we're it's a hostile takeover. We've suddenly got no control over it because you just don't know what Paolo's going to do. I remember that my favourite bit of him when he was at Sunderland. He was Sunderland manager, and the last game before he got sacked, where they were awful and lost 3-0 or 3-1 at West Brom, and he went over to the away end just to do nothing else but gesture at them, just some of their fans all abusing him and what the fuck was that, and he was just shrugging his shoulders hey, come on, what are you on about? Things are gonna turn. I just think fair play to him. He's a man with he doesn't need any sort of allies. He just stands alone, which I quite admire, really.
Yeah, I think any kind of interview you hear that's of ex-players who've played with him, played or been managed by him, it's just a relentless energy, isn't it? And standard. It's just you can imagine from waking up at 7 a.m. to going to bed at 2 in the morning. He just operates at 100 miles an hour, and it's and it expects the same from everybody else, and it's I think just so unique as a person, and just unpredictability is the definition of Di Canio, isn't it? That is pretty much him, isn't it?
I always liked it as well when he was playing for West Ham, and was it at Goodison where the keeper goes down injured and they could have scored.
Yeah.
The goal was open, but he just caught the ball to he had that sort of
He did also push a ref over, so
that's what I like about him. He's kind of that's the thing. He's kind of you don't really know. He's a bit flawed on both. He's a bit of an enigma. Is he? He can go either way, really. So. Yeah, I think that's a solid choice. If we've all got him on our list, then I think he has to be in, really.
Paolo's in.
Paolo's going in.
Grazie.
So the one I was going to throw out there next was probably the most controversial. I don't know if this counts as a maverick or just someone who was just ridiculously just stupid, but El Hadji Diouf. I don't know if we're picking the right category for someone here, because the guy is just a bit of a prick, really, isn't he? But I thought it'd just be worth a mention if we're talking around these about this, and just because to mention some of the things that he's been caught up in. And again, it's similar to Jerry Barton, really. It's quite impressive how someone can just have a timeline of controversy. But Juice is a bit different to Barton's, in where Jerry Barton just seems to not keep his mouth shut when he needs to. Alex Juve just seems to just want to be a prick all the time. One of the best things I read about him was, or worse, was that John at Semabor, who was like a youth player at Liverpool, apparently
He was
Juve turned up at his
as well,
house
wasn't he?
uninvited with like 10 women at like early hours of the morning. Which is just mental. He obviously had feuds with everybody, including like Gerrard, and quite like both of them have been quite open about it. And
Well, it's one of the football rivalries, isn't it? Dobby, on the famous Wikipedia page of individual football player rivalries. It's
Oh, really?
Juve versus Steven Gerrard, which I think we mentioned on a previous episode.
Yeah.
They are pretty. They don't like each other.
I've never known someone spit so much as well. The man's got a lot of spitting offences, including children. Yeah. Also punching females.
Really?
So we're not talking about someone who's just got a bit of a personality like Di Canio. We're talking someone who genuinely goes around assaulting people.
Yeah, I mean, as going off the next line from just being a bit of a dick in it. It's like next stage.
So because at first I thought, right, Maverick, alleged Juve, yeah, definitely. And then I was like, right, let's have a look and just remind myself what he got up to. And then you're reading through it and you're like, wow, I don't know if this even fits the bill of Maverick or if this is just someone who is downright like
Just a twat.
Yeah. So I wanted to throw him in there just to see what you guys thought to him, because he's obviously a man who, although admittedly, when he had that stint at Leeds, he seemed to kind of keep himself out of my memory might serve me wrong, but he seemed to keep himself out of trouble for that like 18 months and played well for periods, even though he wasn't capable of doing 90 minutes. So that went relatively well, but other than that, I can't remember any period of time when he seemed to do something right.
Imagine him at Leeds as well. You think that's going to be the one club where it's like, just like, particularly around that time, it would have just been so ripe for him to create controversy, and that was the one place he kept his head down, which is really weird. But I think great shout, Dobby. I don't know if my only thing with El Chief is that I'm not sure I actually like him enough to want him on the team. But I think if we're talking Maverick players, he's definitely, because he was like, and he was that thing like he was inconsistent as well on the pitch. Like sometimes he was brilliant for Senegal at the 2002 World Cup, but then much of his Liverpool career was absolutely shit. So he was inconsistent as well. Trice, I don't know what your thoughts on Juve are.
Yeah, just sort of similar, really. I don't imagine I could ever have a conversation with him without thinking this guy's an absolute arsehole, but he was a classic example of not to panic buy on the basis of someone who has a good World Cup. Like, did a lot of damage for players after that.
Yeah, he ruined a lot of reputations after that, yeah. Alright, so he's in the maybe for now as well then. Is there anyone else you want to throw into the mix, Trice?
Yeah, he's not as good a player possibly as Di Canio, who's already in the team, but this guy for 16 games was unbelievable in the Premier League, and then did nothing for the rest of his career and life, really. And that's Amir Zaki, and I don't know if you two remember him, but he played for Wigan in maybe 2008 or 9 season possibly, and basically scored 10 in his first 16, including like an overhead kick at Anfield and stuff like that. And you know, Steve Bruce was touting him up as sort of one of the world's future best strikers type thing. Real Madrid and Barcelona were sniffing around allegedly. He was only on loan at Wigan, but what happened is he went away on international duty with Egypt and just got into the habit of whenever he went away with Egypt, it was a guessing game whether he'd turn back to Wigan or not. Just loved being late from an international break. And yeah, I think if you actually watch the like Premier League years or anything like that from like the first part of the show, Zaki is unbelievable, but then like you hear nothing from him. But his time, he went back to Egypt and then had a loan spell at Hull, and I've got this quote for you two. You'll like this. he got asked about whether or not like he'll be staying at Hull after his loan, and he says like, once my loan at Hull's finished, if a half decent team comes in the Premier League, I'll join them. He didn't play for Hull again after that remark.
That's the best footnote to that he didn't play again after that.
You know, what is this guy doing?
Oh, that story's beautiful. I think he's in the team just for that quote alone. It's fantastic.
But I guess you could go down the route of like Balotelli or Tevez. I don't know who you had, Jack, or both of those two were also on my list. But
yeah,
Tevez
is good. Balotelli's like an obvious one. I love that story of Mourinho telling him not to get sent off, and then he goes out and gets sent off straight away. One more player I had on my list. To be honest, more of a midfielder type player. I think he was a box-to-box midfielder, but was the Arsenal midfielder Emmanuel Frimpong. Who, I remember how much you both remember of Emmanuel Frimpong, but I'm not even sure I'm saying his name correctly. But, he basically, Frimpong was related, I believe, to Lethal Bizzle, the rapper.
Yeah, that's right.
So like his whole sort of his football career wasn't really important. It seemed like him playing for Arsenal was just a sideshow to like his early Twitter career, like in that sort of London grime scene of just that was where he saw his future lie, and it was all about him just saying dench as much as he could, and like sort of I suppose if it was nowadays he'd be TikToking, but back then it was probably Vine. Like he was obsessed with being big on social media rather than being in the Arsenal team. And two stories I think just sum him up. One is Aaron Ramsey told a story of, like often footballers, they put out jelly babies in the changing room for players to eat just because I think it's like a really quick fire sugar rush, or like the glucose in it is perfect for playing football. One time apparently the Arsenal team came in at half time and just found that all the jelly babies had gone, like as one, and like Aaron Ramsey apparently turned around and just saw Emmanuel Frimpong sat with the entire packet, just sat eating them, and I don't even think he was in the team, he was on the bench. Like just that sort of behaviour I just think is just very mavericky. And the other story I had about him was that I think it was actually told by Jason Steele on another football podcast, but it was quite funny. So I'll give the shortened version. But basically, when Frimpong later went to Barnsley from Arsenal, he signed for them on a permanent deal, and Jason Steele basically asked him like afterwards, how long have you signed for us for? Like how long's your contract? And he said, my contract's 3 years, but basically, I'm still really an Arsenal player. Arsenal can just buy me back whenever they want. They will be buying me back at some stage. And Jason Steele just looked at him and was like, but you've signed for us. You've signed for us permanently. And Frimpong just couldn't get it in his head that I don't think that he was now a Barnsley player, that he was no longer at Arsenal. He just still thought he belonged at Arsenal and was like, yeah, they're gonna buy me back at some stage. Jason Steele was like, said he went home and Googled it on the internet and was like, to make sure that he was definitely a permanent signing, and said, went into training and was like, I've read it, you're signing for us, you're here permanently, stop trying to act like you're not. So I think after he left Barnsley, he just completely like went off the radar from football altogether, and just I think he was retired by the time he was 26, 25. So
really,
I just think
wow.
In terms of having like a bizarre career and just there are only a few snippets, those stories of him, but I just think he was clearly a very different character, and just I think that is why I thought I'd mention him for this team.
No, good call. He was rogue.
Yeah. He did seem to have that like unpredictability of just because he was almost kind of highly regarded, wasn't he, for that year or so at Arsenal, where it was like on the fringes and there was potential that he could like become. I feel like Arsenal do put a lot of emphasis on some of these youth players when they come through. Like, are they going to be the next 10-year kind of like fill the void for someone for 10 years? And I feel like he was one of them where there was that question mark about him, and then it was just typically one of those stories where it just goes like completely the other way, and that does I didn't realise wanting football anymore, but I think. And funnily enough, Arsenal have had a few of them players, probably who haven't been as close to the first team, but who were part of like successful youth teams, getting a bit of like time on the bench, maybe even a few first team appearances, and then you've seen them playing for some like the London non-league clubs in like recent years, like Sutton United when they bloody beat Leeds a couple of years ago in the FA Cup. I remember before the game, they have like 3 ex-Arsenal like players who I recognised, and I was like, "What? Like, how are these ended up here?" I swear there was like on Arsenal's bench last year. But I guess Frimpong is the one who stands out of having a bit more of like a personality to him, and he obviously made that song as well, didn't he? The Lethal Bizzle song.
I was just going to say to it is I didn't realise this before. I just knew him as a rogue footballer, but then I've gone on Personal Life on his Wikipedia page, and Personal Life just says he is cousin to Lethal Bizzle. In 2012, Frimpong contributed a rap verse to the remix of Bizzle's track "Leave It Yeah." That's it. That's the entire section.
Yeah, I mean, what was our period of life? I remember that Frimpong
just
being
the whole culture around him. Also, he was sent off on his Barnsley debut after 31 minutes. So, if that doesn't say I'm not supposed to be here, I'm just going to get sent off straight away. I
think there is an episode in revisiting Arsenal players who have then gone on to play, like, because I'm just thinking now there's so many who have just ended up like playing in like League 2 and non-league, but for some reason all were highly like speculated to go on to do things, and now play for like Sutton United or Boreham Wood.
I think that is definitely an episode we've got to do. We've got to look forward to that. Right, if we call it at the moment our 4 outfield players, I'm saying we've got Barton, we've got Taarabt, Di Canio, I think it's got to be in.
Yeah.
And then so we're looking at 2 more boys. Who are we going for? Is Frimpong made the cut?
Well, we've got Zaki, haven't we? Who's
I think
obviously
Zaki's got to go in as well. Actually,
yeah.
Wait, are we 5-a-side though, or 6-a-side?
Yeah,
sorry.
5. So we've got 5 essentially.
We've got a keeper of
Gabor.
Corelli,
Yeah.
and then I think Barton has to be in. I think Di Canio has to be in. I think Zaki actually has to be in.
I think Zaki, just because of them weird like starts the seasons and then just completely going off the grid.
You got someone off the boil like
He
that.
must be the only player in history that played for Wigan and then got linked to Real Madrid and then ended up going to Egypt after that.
Yeah.
It's not a regular career path.
I remember that start to the season and just thinking like, wow, who is this guy? Like, he's going to be the next like best striker in the world, and I just wanted to. I don't know if I remember on one of the old FIFAs. I don't know if he was on it or like he was on it, but with a really low rating. But like just signing him and thinking like this guy's literally the next best striker, and then 2 years later, I don't even think he was on FIFA.
That's the kind of rogueness we need in this team, definitely.
So I think the 5 is quite all kind of speak for themselves. So I guess it's only if we want to put any challenges in there, really. If we want to, if we're happy with the 5 that we've put forward. The only one I was going to maybe go with for the striker as an alternative, and we've mentioned him, would have just been Balotelli, which I think everyone's kind of familiar with the Balotelli stories, though, aren't they? Like everyone's read them in the newspapers, so it's not almost like you're picking someone out who you've just kind of like reminisced on. It does feel a bit of an obvious choice, but again, just a pretty good timeline and just some. The nice thing with Balotelli, though, we're moving away from people who just seem to spit a lot, or like, or just abuse or like assault people, and someone who's just got more like a lot of money at a young age, and is just maybe making decisions that a lot of people would do, like. Well, probably I would still hit 26, like setting fireworks off out of his bathroom window, going to the shop for his mum and coming back with a trampoline and a Vespa and a Scalextric, apparently. So
our final 5-a-side team then, boys, I think we're going with Gabor Corelli in goal, Joey Barton, Is Adelta Rapt getting in? I kind of want Adelta.
Yeah, I want him in there.
Yeah, put him in.
Adelta Rapt, Amir Zaki, and Paolo Di Canio, and I think we'll have Emmanuel Frimpong as the sub because he won't fancy playing anyway. Yeah, if anyone's got their own suggestions, anyone we've missed out, then do get in touch or pick your own five-a-side teams and let us know on the socials. Right, I think that's it for tonight, boys. We'll call time in the bar, but I've enjoyed picking that Maverick five-a-side team with you both. Enjoy the added freedoms that we've now got over the next few weeks, and I'll see you on the next episode. Cheers.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers, guys.
See you soon.
If you enjoy this shambles of a football podcast, you can get in touch with myself, Trice, and Dobby at any of the following addresses on social media. Trice, what are we on Twitter?
Play out from bar.
So that's at playout from bar. And
Yes.
what are we on Instagram?
Playing out from the bar.
Beautiful. And what are we on Facebook?
Playing out from the bar again.
We like to mix it up on this show.
Creative.
And we're also playing out from the bar at gmail.com if you want to send us an email. Anything football related at all. It can be a weird story, a bit like the time when Trice met Harry Maguire in a Manchester boozer. Anything along those lines, then just send it in and we'll read it out on the show and discuss it. So cheers. Get in touch.